Today, respects will be paid to the 22 people killed in the Manchester Arena terror attack 5 years on from the bombing. Acts of remembrance will be held throughout Manchester city centre, including services which will be held at Manchester Cathedral, where the names of the 22 people killed will be read out.
Well, helping us look through today's tributes and how the city has been affected after 5 years is the CEO of the Tim Parry Foundation, Johnathan Ball Peace Foundation, Colin Parry. Colin, good morning to you. I mean, you understand the pain that these parents and the victims' families are going through more than anybody. You lost your son, Tim, in absolutely horrific circumstances. I wonder, 5 years on, how will those victims' families be feeling, especially those who lost young children? Because this is a pain that never goes away, is it?
No, it isn't. I mean, the death of a child is... if you can accept there's a scale for these things, the death of a child is absolutely the worst thing that can happen to a family. It can rip families apart. The mortality rate of families, never mind the mortality of the child, I believe is exceptionally high. Couples split because they react differently, they grieve differently, their mood changes are different, and there's by no means any certainty the families remain a coherent unit.
It's sometimes with grief, it's a case of living with it as opposed to processing it, and sometimes you never get closure.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I remember well, we were sort of on some kind of automatic form of living without much thought. We got up, we ate, we went to bed. People told us what to do. We were often just lost totally in our own thoughts and memories and grief. And if it weren't for the fact of close family members and, interestingly, the support of the police service, in our case, we'd have been often bereft.
Colin, I mean, what was your reaction 5 years ago when you first heard about the Manchester Arena bombing? It was an Ariana Grande concert. It was many young children. I mean, I think the youngest victim was just 8 years old. Absolutely horrific circumstances, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a gruesome event for the bomber to target a pop concert where he must have known the huge majority of the audience would be children, young people. It's the most callous of bombings. Any attack, of course, on civilians is beyond reproach, but that was particularly awful.
Do you still feel anger about what happened, Colin? Because anger takes a lot of energy, but do you still feel that?
No. I get asked this a lot. There's an assumption that you feel anger. In my case, my wife's case, I think we just felt grief rather more than anger. I mean, I'm not saying we consciously weren't angry. We just weren't. We were heartbroken. And I'm glad that anger wasn't the primary emotion that we felt, because I think that would have been destructive for the rest of our family, our other children, and our wider family. So to answer your question directly, anger wasn't the issue for us. It was just total, utter grief that our bright, funny, sometimes cheeky son was no longer there. And the gap in the family was just enormous.
I mean, what work has your organisation done to help victims of the Manchester Arena attack?
Well, we were on the scene as quickly as we could get there, because Warrington to Manchester isn't a great distance, as you might know. It's only about 15 miles. So some of our people were there straight away, and over the days, weeks and months that followed, and to this date, we estimate we've been helping roughly 1,000 people who were variously affected by the arena. Now, that could be that they were simply witnesses to what happened. The event itself caused fear, or that they were injured, or, of course, they were family members of those who were bereaved. It didn't matter how they were impacted. We, as a charity, took it upon ourselves to provide the help we could, and we've done that to this day.
In what way, just expand on that a little bit for us, in what way you've helped them?
Well, we meet people individually, or if it's better for them in a family context, or even groups of people who've experienced the same thing. The process is very basic. It's other people who've experienced or are associated with a similar experience, meeting people who've just experienced that awful trauma, and letting them realise that you can survive. You can eventually rebuild your life in some form. You know, they're not alone. I mean, it's great, of course, that the emergency services are on hand to help, and so they should be. But that's practical help. I think the emotional help that an organisation like ours can give is what makes it very special, because there is a shared experience, and that always is a comfort to you when human beings suffer so tragically as they did.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that strikes many people in the wake of the Manchester Arena bombing was the way that the city came together and kind of the strength of the city after that attack. It was there to break them, and I think it really did bring them together, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It did. I mean, we sometimes worry whether there is such a thing as society. But at times like that, I think, I'm not saying it's unique to the British, but I think it is a British trait. That we do show our empathy and show our support to those who need it at those times. And we do gather round and provide some emotional or practical support. It's just in our DNA.
Well, Colin, it is absolutely wonderful to speak to you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so sorry for your loss, but it's so wonderful what you're doing to support other families of victims that have been killed in terror attacks. It really is very moving. So thank you so much for your time. That was Colin Parry. He's the founder and the CEO of Tim Parry and Johnathan Ball Peace Foundation.